Hey y'all, we are inside today because it's still winter out there. Brr. And in today's video, we are going to talk about the initial phases of planting a new garden. Now, if you didn't catch yesterday's video, I'm no longer in the country. I am in a very suburban setting with a small suburban backyard, but I do have a clean slate. So, we're going to talk about two things today. The first being what kind of garden you're looking for, and the other one is the expectation you have from your garden. So, the first thing you have to decide is what kind of garden you want. Now, there are hundreds of different types of gardens out there. You can grow a cut flower garden, you can grow solely herbs, you can grow like a tea garden, things like that, a rose garden. I mean, there are all different kinds of gardens that you can have. For the sake of this video and the series, we are going to be primarily talking about vegetable and fruit gardening. And with vegetable and fruit gardening, we don't have to concentrate on our zones that much. Although you should know your growing zone. Although you really don't need it for vegetable and fruit production. And that's because the majority of fruits and vegetables are actually annuals and not perennials. Annuals are plants that grow for one season. Their primary job is to grow, make lots of seeds, drop those seeds, and once their job is done, they die back. And yes, I do know that there are ways to make those annual plants survive longer than a season, but lots of plants, they'll struggle. They'll struggle going into the next season because their job is to make seeds, drop the seeds, and then their job is done. Perennials are plants that will just grow, grow, grow. For example, like a peach tree or an apple tree or grapevines or rose bushes or raspberry, blackberry bushes. You get the idea. And yes, every single one of those that I mentioned, they do make a fruit. They do make seed, but they will just continue to grow and grow. That is the nature of that particular plant. And that's where your growing zone is going to come in. Those plants that are just going to live and live and live and grow and grow and grow, we need to know their cold tolerance and their heat tolerance in order to ensure they survive and produce fruit. Just because you can grow a peach tree in your area, if you don't get enough cold for those peaches, the peaches won't develop on the tree. And then there's like cherry trees. You'll be able to grow the tree here, but will you be able to get it to fruit because they typically don't like our hot summers? And that's why we need to know our growing zones. Now, on the same token, there's annual plants that don't like the heat or don't like the cold. Although they're not perennials, you really need to know what plants like cold weather and what plants like hot weather, so your garden can thrive and you're not struggling trying to figure out what the heck you did wrong. Let me give you a very good example. For years, I tried to grow sugar snap peas. For years, I planted them in the spring along with my beans and they never developed. I mean, never. My plants didn't get big at all, and I never saw a pea from them. However, my friends to the north were getting bumper crops, and I was frustrated. Then I found out that peas don't like hot weather. And here in Southeast Texas, Zone 9B, it just gets hot really fast. Once we have that spring break, when it goes from winter to spring for like a day or two, and then we shoot up into the 90s, yeah, they just don't like that. It just gets too warm here too fast for them to be spring gardens. And knowing that, I stuck those snap peas in my fall garden, and ooh, did they do amazing. And here's another example. Lettuce. Lettuce does not do very good here in the spring, in the summer at all. It's a fall vegetable for us here. So it's really important to know the weather around you, to be fully aware of when it's going to get cold, when it's going to get hot. That way you can plant those plants in your garden when they can thrive the best, the most, and you won't be as frustrated as I was. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is your expectations from your garden. Um, to grow plants? Yes, to grow plants, but that's not exactly what I meant. Are you looking for a garden that you're going to just eat seasonally from, when things are fresh and ripe on the vine? Or are you looking for a garden that you can also grow food that you can preserve, whether it's canning, freezing, dehydrating, fermenting, freeze dried? I think I covered them all. So for me, I want a vegetable and fruit garden that I can grow for year round eating. I want to be able to preserve tomatoes for the winter months when they won't be fresh and hot right off the vine. I also want to make sure that I have plenty of pickles and pickled jalapenos to last until next growing season, as well as carrots and greens. And every bit of those things can be grown in my garden, but just in different phases, different times of the year. The difference between my growing season and maybe somebody that's up north, way up north of me, is that your garden, you would put everything in at one time because you've got a cooler spring for longer, and a very short summer, and your summers may not get as warm as us, where we have a very short spring before summer kicks in, even though it's still considered spring. And then we have a very long, hot, humid growing season it does bring up its own challenges. And then we have a nice fall season that's pretty much the same as some of my friends up north, their spring season. Well, now that you know what kind of garden I want to grow and my expectations from my garden, I want to hear in the comments, what are your plans for your garden and your expectations for it? Don't forget to like, and if you're not already, go ahead and hit that follow button.